wherever you are with your cycle, if you're already working with the cycle, if you're not sure you have a cycle, you are welcome here. You're welcome here. We're going to talk about lots of stuff. It's going to be good. All right. Let me know you're with us, beautiful ones. Yeah, so I give these teachings freely. I give my time and my energy freely every week. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to luminousleanings.com and up in that top menu, click make a donation. It's a way to practice dana. Dana is a Buddhist practice of giving something back, making an exchange with your teacher. And yeah, I don't do this in a vacuum. I have needs, so I'm gonna put that out there. Whether you're listening to the replay, watching the replay, you can support my work in that way. Keep the goodness coming. All right. And you can always sign up. Sign up for the letter. I send a letter about every week or every 2 weeks, depending on how I'm feeling. And if you sign up here, I'm putting the link in the chat for self-love sermon updates, or if you go to luminousleanings.com and click up at the top events and self-love sermons, you can sign up to get the updates. You'll know what the sermon's going to be about the day of, so you can choose, whether it's for you or not, and you'll always get the replays in the letter. I also have a podcast version of self-love sermons, and you can find that at SoundCloud. And as many of you know, I'm transitioning from Luminous Leanings to Ellen Gilbert Coaching. My website is very, very close to being complete. So it's very exciting. It's going to be ellengilbert.com, and I'm really hoping that it will launch this week, actually. Dare I say it? So get ready for a lot of new offerings, and to really see me claim this role as divine feminine coach, whereas before I was self-care coach. So it's taking on a deeper flavor. And yeah, let's start with a check-in as we light our candle, or whatever you have. Maybe you have some lotion you want to put on, or anything you need to do to make your space a sacred circle. You're joining many people, whether live or in the replay here tonight, for an hour of self-love. What could be more worthy than that? So maybe you want to light a candle with us, cast that circle of intention, that boundary, closing those extra tabs, closing the door, whatever you got to do, dear ones, to just be here now with us. What a radical act. Holding your intention in your heart. Take a deep breath in to seal it. And so it is. And so it is. Beautiful ones. Let's start with a question. My question for you to check in is actually to ask you, where are you in your cycle? Whatever that means to you. If you have a menstrual cycle, do you know what day you're on? Do you know what season you're in? Do you know about which side of things you're on? Maybe you know you're closer to ovulation or closer to menstruation. Or maybe you just want to acknowledge the moon phase we're in, or your own energetic season. And I ask this because I really want to normalize answering the question, how are you, with where you are in your cycle. I've been doing this, getting braver at doing this, And it serves as an entry point to help educate people and to help normalize menstruation and the fact that our cycle isn't only the days that we're bleeding, our cycle is ongoing forever and ever, right? And as far as the menstrual cycle goes, it starts at something called menarche, which is your first bleed, and it goes all the way to menopause. So the first day, good question, Claire, is the first day of full red blood. So sometimes if I start bleeding really late in a day or in the evening, I'll count the next day as my day one. But you have to really find that for yourself. When do you feel like, okay, I've reset, the cycle's coming around again? I am on day 17 of my cycle. Day 17. So that is actually for me, I have a very long cycle and I have not ovulated yet this cycle. So I'm still in my inner spring season. And so lots of waxing energy growing up to that peak ovulation point. And I'm feeling really good. I've got that energy for sure. I did a nice workout, got a lot of creative projects done. Let's see, Micah. My energetic season definitely feels wintry. I've been needing lots of rest and feeling pulled to sort of hibernate and retreat and focus on tending to my energy and needs. Beautiful one. Oh, I love the winter season. I think I feel most myself there actually now. The more I open to the wisdom of winter, and maybe because now we're in a solar winter in the northern hemisphere, I feel very at home in the winter time. And I think the pandemic season, for those of us who have been hibernating, has been an ongoing winter season of our lives. Yeah. All right, beautiful. If anyone else would like to share, you are welcome to do so. And we're going to begin with a little visualization, a little breath work, a little dropping into the body just to fully arrive right here, right now. So coming to comfortable position. Taking some deep breaths in and letting them go at your own pace. Shaking out loose the neck. Maybe rolling the wrists. Deepening that breath. What do you need to do to be here fully? Maybe tap, tap, tap the feet on the floor. Hello, waking up that connection to Mother Earth, that resource energy, growing our roots deep, deep down, anchoring in. Maybe it's letting the belly go, just fully breathing in, expanding, contracting. Maybe it's just placing the hands gently in the lap in a sign of receiving openness that says, I'm here to learn whatever I'm meant to learn or experience whatever I'm meant to experience. Maybe it's bringing a smile to the lips and breathing with that smile, even imagining a smile in your mind. Letting your mind merge with your smile. Breathing into any resistance. Maybe letting the heart merge with that smile. And soften. Any other body parts that need to merge with that smile, letting them do so now. What's in the way of your joy? Rather than judging it, can you just include it? The wisdom of the cycle shows us that every piece of our experience belongs. There is a time and a season for every emotion, sensation, challenge, gift. So if including these things in your joy feels too difficult tonight, maybe try including them in your trust. If it helps, you can bring your hands to your heart in a gesture of including. Including what is rough, what is heavy, what isn't yet clear. Including what is painful or uncomfortable. Including your grief even. Trusting that you are resting right within the cycle where you are meant to be. And that change is its nature. Taking a deep breath in. Letting it go. And gently coming back to us. Back to our circle here. In your own time. There is never any rush. Precious ones. I feel better. I feel brighter. How do you feel? What got included? What piece of your experience that you'd been resisting got a little softened around the edges just now? I'd love to hear if you want to share or hold it in your heart. All right, dear ones. So why are we talking about cycles? Why does this matter? Why did I just do a whole meditation on cycle wisdom? I said that everything belongs in the cycle, that there is a season for every piece of your experience. This is something that our menstrual cycle can show us. It's something that is reflected in nature. So we know it's natural, right? The wheel of the year spins on, the seasons change, the moon drifts in and out of shadows every month in her 8 phases, her 4 seasons that reflect our energetic seasons. You know, the tide turns in the ocean, pulled by her, and we ebb and flow. We wax and wane. And we can see this reflected in nature and say, it is good. It is good. It belongs. Not only is it reflected in nature, but In our very womb, it is the force that creates human life. No big deal. And yet what happens? It gets swept under the rug. It gets tabooified. It gets vilified, misunderstood. Yeah, misunderstood and certainly not honored. Certainly not worshipped as the life-giving energy that it is. So often we think of the period as the cycle, but we're missing out on this huge thing called ovulation, which, hello, is like our peak energy. This is the power we hold to create not only life, but any creative project that we're hoping to create. And when we can harness this wisdom and this power and honor it, we see our true power, that we can create whatever we want. Whatever we want. It's up to us. It's up to us. And we can just sit back and go, wow, how amazing is this, that I have this force within me. And we can feel very honored to be a part of this greater cycle of life. And it helps heal our fear of death. Because if you have a womb, you hold within you the life, death, life cycles. It's incredibly mysterious. It's incredibly power. It's incredibly sacred and divine. Why not see what it wants to show you, what it wants to teach you? Because everything I'm going to say here is based on my experience and my learning, my education. But it's up to you. The biggest rule is that you find what's true for you. We're going to talk about cycle tracking. We're going to talk about how you can start to take note of what each season feels like, vibes like in your body, in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit. That's the big red rule. That's the most important part of cycle awareness. But let's take a step back and look at the 3 lessons that cycle wisdom offers us. So lesson 1, cycle wisdom teaches us to be in our bodies and upon the earth. So we're embodied here and we're embodied here on the planet, on Mama Earth. If you don't have a relationship to her, cultivate one. Studies show that people who walk barefoot upon the earth have less inflammation. Maybe it's snowy outside like it is here, so maybe that's not the best idea at the moment, but find ways to get grounded, to develop a relationship to her, to the spirits of the land, whatever that looks like in your spirituality. You can create an altar to the land. You can pay a native land tax to honor the people from whom the land was taken. If you are a settler, as I am, you can be in right relationship or be moving toward right relationship through the way you consume and the ways you waste. What needs to be looked at? What's coming up? Eco grief is real. Last year I had a funeral for the earth on Earth Day, which was just me grieving, like having my eco grief just open. It was so painful, but it was so healing, because on the other side of that grief, which hasn't gone away, but on the other side there is joy and there is so much love. So when I do these grounding meditations, I'm really resourcing from her, and I see her as a representation of divine feminine. What does that look like for you? But she has cycles, doesn't she? She's rotating. Yeah. She's changing from winter to spring to summer to autumn and back again. A couple of weeks ago, we celebrated Imbolc here, and we had a cross-quarter Imbolc ritual. Maybe learning what your ancestors did to honor the seasons. These are all ways to be in our bodies and be upon the earth. We've got the wheel of the year. We've got these natural cycles. The ocean, if you live near the ocean, you can do beautiful ocean rituals. And just listening to ocean sounds or looking at videos of the ocean waves can be incredibly healing. You can breathe in as the tide comes out, or in, and breathe out as the tide goes out. And open to the truth that you are the entire ocean. You're not just one wave getting tossed. There's a lot of wisdom there. So lesson 1, to be in our bodies, to be upon the earth, is to be present, resourced, and whole. Present, resourced, and whole. What do I mean by present? That is the most radical thing. And if you're here with us and you're focused and you're mindful, you're very brave because you're opening to your own abundance and shutting out the scarcity that there's better things going on. That's presence. If you're resourced, you're remembering, look at these amazing resources all around me. Again, abundance, grounding from the earth, filling your body with earth's grounding energy in meditation and visualization, in nature, whatever that looks like for you. That's resourcing. And the wholeness, I can't explain wholeness, but you know it when you feel it. Embodied presence. That's lesson 1. Lesson 2, the cycle shows us how to release control, to go with the flow and be okay with and even honor and worship the changing experience. The Bible says this too shall pass. In Buddhism, we say, don't build the house of your ego on the shifting sands. Everything is giving way. Entropy is what science gives us, right? As soon as something is created, it's being destroyed. Everything is shifting. A very early sermon I did on this Buddhist concept of non-attachment was about this very process. When we cling to what is changing, when we try to control it or try to hold on to it forever, and we do this with good and with bad things. Judgment is a negative clinging that so many of us are caught up in and need to detox from. Everything is changing. George Harrison, All Things Must Pass Away. Love that song. And the cycle shows us how, yes? Every month, my womb, sheds its inner layer again. And that passes away. It's gone. There's no holding on to it. I look forward to it. It's a gift. I'm like, oh, what a relief. What a release. So that's lesson 2. And lesson 3, we are taught by the cycle that we can trust that everything will be reborn. Everything comes back around. Everything belongs. So as we're letting go and realizing it's passing away, it's coming back around in a different form. There's another opportunity every month or every month to start over. How beautiful. And with that, we can learn that everything belongs. every part of our experience, and all parts of us belong here. I hope this gives you hope. It gives me hope. It helps me deeply. And there's many, many more cyclical lessons. Open to your own, or share them in the chat. I'd love to hear. Hi, Jen. All right. Cyclical wisdom. Now we're going into period power, y'all. So, yeah. Periods are tabooed. And it makes no sense. This cycle is what creates life. So let's all take up the call to challenge what's really body shame, any kind of period shaming, because even though the period's not the whole cycle, it's kind of the part that bumps up against life, and it's the part that can be the most shameful, the most taboo. Let's all take up this charge to call out when we see that kind of body shame at play in the workplace, with our partners, with our friends, with our families. Wherever we see it, let's call it out. Yeah, that's really body shaming, isn't it? It's shaming what is natural, what is beautiful, what is so good, and what created all of us. So, you know, have you ever been like in a room where women are talking about their cycle or their period, and there's like one man present and all the women turn to him and like apologize? It drives me nuts. I'm like, why are you apologizing? Like, this is the reason he's here. So let's stop that, please. Let's also stop hiding our tampons up our sleeves. Let's just wave them around, y'all. This is so natural, and it's so good, and it feels healing to do this for ourselves, and it shifts culture, which is what I'm all about. We all have a part to play. And the beautiful thing beyond shifting culture is that learning about our cycle, working with our cycle and not against it, actually shifts our relationship to ourselves. And you know I'm about that. Started out as a self-care coach, and I really wanted to partner with people on this inner life. All the noise going on in the heart, in the body, in the mind, in the spirit. The ways we relate to ourselves, I think, are fascinating. And there are opportunities to love ourselves more in every moment, in every situation, and every day. And the cycle gets to be another piece of that puzzle if you let it, if you work at it. It's really your relationship to your cycle. Because maybe you've noticed, like, I feel like I'm 4 different people every single month. I feel like a different person when I'm bleeding, when I'm ovulating, when I'm pre-ovulatory, when I'm premenstrual. Does anyone else feel that way? Is your energy so different throughout the month that it feels like you're 4 different people with 4 different superpowers and 4 different, vulnerabilities, with 4 different needs for self-care, 4 separate, discrete abilities to get different types of work done, maybe 4 different inner critics that pop up? I think this is so interesting. For many of us, I was talking with my mom about this last night, shout out, that the premenstrual time is especially challenging. But how does it get played up in the media? PMS as a syndrome, the vilification, the demonization of the woman who needs to bleed, or the woman who is bleeding. And if we haven't been given these sacred tools to rest when we bleed, sacred tools like period leave, if we haven't been given these tools to set boundaries in our premenstrual phase, to work with our inner critic instead of against it. I'm going to give you some good tools for this. The inner critic should live in the premenstrual time, step into its editing power for your life in the premenstrual time, and we should banish it from all other parts. The premenstrual time is especially challenging. I entered this work, and many people I know entered this work because they wanted to have more compassion for their premenstrual self. You can have compassion for each of these different versions of yourself. You can take care of them. The bleed is a great reset time, and we can start slowly caring for that next seasonal version of ourselves. So maybe when you're bleeding, you're setting up a little bit mentally, emotionally, spiritually for the spring by resting in your winter. And that gives way to, in the spring, taking care of that summer self who's going to ovulate by being really creative and setting up those collaborations, setting up that next step so that you can hit the ball out of the park at your peak energy and serve with your big open heart. And in the summer, you are definitely thinking ahead to autumn self, premenstrual self, and you are not overscheduling your social calendar. You're being really mindful. Like, I can't have a single thing. It can be really, really challenging some months when I've overscheduled my premenstrual week. And of course, in the premenstrual time, we are readying the period cave. We're getting that good hit of progesterone, the adulting hormone, and we are nesting and prepping our period cave. Claire, girl, I'm a different person before and after lunch, late in the afternoon, late in the evening, early in the morning, and after coffee. Yes, sister. That actually is so interesting because I've been thinking about the seasons of the day. So your day can have 4 seasons or more. Your week can have the seasons. Maybe you notice the weekend is more like your winter or the evening in the day. This cycle wisdom can be applied to anything, any unit of time. Yeah, that's so funny. Thank you for sharing. Micah says, definitely understanding your cyclical changes allows you to better meet yourself where you are and provide care that will be more meaningful for that context. Yes, beautiful one. That is spot on. I love that. Beautiful. So if we can work with even that premenstrual version, we can actually minimize, and some people find they can even eliminate pain during their period. And I have found this, that my period pain has gone significantly down, dare I say almost non-existent, my past 2 cycles, because I have done next to absolutely nothing during the bleed. And I only bleed for like 3 days, 4 days tops. So I can usually kind of make it work to where I'm pushing other things out. And you better believe I turn my couch into a bed. I get the heating pad, make myself a pot of herbal tea every day. And when I'm set up in this way, I want to like get witchy and be reading and journal like crazy and really nourish myself. And then guess what? I have a great cycle. The entire cycle benefits. So this really, all of this work affects our relationship to self. If you don't believe you're worthy or enough for this, just like the pleasure practices, just like the law of attraction, just like everything we've been talking about here, it's going to be really difficult to work with your cycle because you're going to believe that there's absolutely no way I can take off during my period. What, are you crazy? You know? We have such a scarcity mentality around this. So instead, can you take one thing off your plate during your bleed? Can you, ask one person to be your period bouncer? Like, anyone has to come through you because I just cannot right now. Who's going to be your ally during that time? You're going to raise that red flag and say, like, I need childcare. I need someone to make me food. Like, we need to support each other, rebuild the red tent, and really take care of the bleeding people in our lives. Yeah. Claire's on day 1. So exciting. But she had meetings. Oh, it looks like almost all day. Meeting. 10 different little meetings. Yes. Oof. Yes. That is very challenging on day 1. You just want to like bleed in peace. I hope you can have a peaceful bleed. Micah says, as someone who typically has really painful periods, that's so interesting. Yes. We can carve this out. We can minimize our pain and even work with the pain to talk to it, talk to the blood, talk to the womb, talk to your pussy. I'm getting really into this. And it's like they just have so much love for us. So much love and so much wisdom. Talk to your cramps. They're working on releasing something. Okay, so we got to start tracking our cycle. And if you're not already doing this, I got you covered. I already made a handy dandy little PDF, putting it in the chat. Or you can go to luminousleanings.com and just search my cycle, or soon to be ellengilbert.com. And yeah, you can start tracking your cycle just like I do every single day. And if you miss a day, that's fine. I would recommend starting on day 1 because then it's day 1. Can't really hide from your day 1. And what I want you to do is keep in your journal the day of your cycle that you're on, the season you think you might be in, and we're going to talk more about the seasons. And I have a whole guide on luminousleanings.com around tracking your cycle, what days around what day ranges tend to be each season, and what you're noticing. It could be one word, it could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, it could be a page. What are you noticing about your body, your heart, your mind, your spirit? These are the 4 areas you can include in the body, like sleeping patterns, your digestion, any pain you're experiencing. Today I slipped and fell on the ice and bruised my leg, and I wanted to remember which day I had bruised, so I included that under body because I want to see how quickly my bruise heals. It's just another way to keep a finger on the pulse of your precious, changing, unfolding experience as you encounter it. What a beautiful way to partner with your emotions, your thoughts, your sensations, and to see them shift over time, and then each cycle see, oh, on day 17, my last cycle, I actually felt very similar. This would be a great day for reaching out and collaborating with people. This would be a great day for starting a new creative project or whatever it is. You might not have that wisdom the first cycle you track. You likely won't, and it will likely be challenging, but stick with it. Reach out to me for any support. Just to say, hey, Ellen, I'm doing it and it's hard. Because I'm doing it with you. We can talk about what day we're on. And if you're using the moon, if you don't have a cycle, or if you would like to just also use the moon, you can track where the moon phase is and how that might be relating to all of these areas. You can also track with the My Cycle sheets that I shared in the Facebook chat. You can also track any words you particularly need to hear that day. And this could be your intention, this could be your affirmation, this could be, you just write like you are loved. Pretend like a sweet loved one is saying these words to you. You can also track any self-care that would feel good and then do it that day, and any rituals that you might need to support you, whatever that looks like for you. Or track whatever the hell you want. It's not really up to me. It's whatever you need. You are sovereign in your cycle. Your cycle knows best. So listen to it. I tracked my cycles all of 2020. And I discovered that I have a very irregular cycle, highly irregular, everywhere from 30 to 46 plus days. And I'm working with my healer, my acupuncturist, to kind of figure out if things need adjusting and tuning and working with, but also just to have a better sense of, for sure I've ovulated. I track my basal body temperature. And this is a special thermometer that shows 2 decimal points of the degree, because that's the slightest way that your temperature shifts after ovulation. So it can be kind of intense. If you want to do this, reach out to me for tips. I don't use it as a form of contraception. I'm not that experienced with it to do that. But the fertility awareness method includes this. So if you already are familiar with that. And basically, when you can track that you have ovulated, you pretty much know you're going to menstruate 14 days later. And I used to really be surprised by my bleeds. I don't know about you all, but even with tracking my cycle, as I said, it can be so irregular. So this really helped give me some of that power back. It's not about control. We do not control our cycle. It's about awareness, menstrual cycle awareness, so that we can live in more ease, so that we can better prepare and care for ourselves in every phase. So no more surprise periods. And I can actually know that until I ovulate, after my bleed, when my energy is rising in that inner spring, that's the season I'm in. And my inner spring is my longest season. So even my inner spring has like its own season. Sometimes it's 2 weeks long. And then after ovulation, I know that I'm in my summer for a bit at that peak energy, maybe 5 days or so. And then I do start that shift back into inner autumn, which is the premenstruum. And we all have our telltale signs that we are premenstrual. And as I said, if you've had a particularly challenging cycle, if maybe your last bleed you did not get to rest, this can be really, really hard. So if that's you, if you're experiencing that now, or if you experience that ever, do not judge yourself. You inherited this patriarchal, capitalist, scarcity culture, and you are detoxing. You are slowly recovering. So good on you. You're on the right track. It just takes a little bit of time. This is all new. We're not taught this. We're learning it now. We're learning it now. And that's all that matters. So let's dive into the seasons. We've got about 12 minutes left, and I just want to touch on these. Oh, Micah says I've fallen on the ice each morning since we got it. Precious one, I'm so sorry. I hope you are okay and not too badly injured. Sending you love and healing. It's awful. The ice is so dangerous. We're all experiencing this storm. It's really interesting because I'm in New Mexico. My family's in Kentucky and all over. And we're all like swapping stories of power outages and ice. And it just reminds me that like, oh yeah, we really are all in this together, you know? It's very interesting to share that weather. Okay. If you have any questions about the seasons, drop them in the chat. Inner winter. We'll start here. This is also connected to the new moon. It's approximately days 27 to day 5 of the cycle. This is if you have a 28 to 30 day cycle thereabouts, which is the average length of a cycle. But these numbers will not work for everyone. So that inner winter, it's the menstruation season. It's the time when you're bleeding. Day 1 is that day of that full red blood. But your inner winter, you might notice, really creeps up a few days before you even start bleeding. And in the book Wild Power, which I highly recommend, by Alexandra Pope and I don't know how to pronounce her name, I'm so sorry, Siani Hugo Wurlitzer, the founders of the Red School, they talk about how to kind of tell that you're going into your inner winter even before you bleed. There's a phase, it's like a veil that you cross through. It's called separation. And you can just tell, like, I'm no longer irritated by everyone, but I do know that I need my alone time. And you must retreat. You must be able to get that separation and honor it. And all the boundaries you've been setting in your inner autumn will help with that. So it's that time of the void. We did a great sermon a few months ago on our inner winter and our outer winter and the winter season and the divine feminine nature of winter, because it is a yin season. So it is connected to our feminine energy, our waning energy. Obviously, all of our hormones have completely flatlined and, we do bleed. And then as soon as we start bleeding, estrogen steadily begins climbing again. So you have your follicular phase and your luteal phase. The winter is the first half of the follicular phase because estrogen is rising even though you feel like completely low, bottomed out energy. Yeah. Estrogen and progesterone totally tanked, right? Triggers the bleed. Estrogen begins rising again. So it's a great time for dreaming, for rest, for visualizations, for rituals. Like I said, getting witchy with it. If you got your tarot deck, if you got your crystals, if you got your candles, if you got whatever you work with, honey, whatever your thing is, you want those tools near because you're going to be really listening to your intuition. Really, really like touching into those dreams that you're having. You're going to want to write a lot. When we've cleared the decks, when we've cleared the space, we can really honor this time. And we might find it's just what we needed that whole time to make meaning of our lives, to prioritize what matters most, to make sure we're in alignment with our calling, our destiny, our purpose, and to reset and recharge. And it's not a recharging for the capitalism, for the inner capitalist. It's a recharging for our vitality, our ability to give and to receive. It is a necessary season and so undervalued and underutilized for these amazing gifts that it gives us. You're going to want to avoid pressuring yourself to really show up in this season. So it would not be a time to schedule, Instagram lives or Facebook lives. It would not be a time to schedule big meetings or big social gatherings, right? Because we're going to want to really be the hermit in this season. And you will notice maybe on day 2 or day 3 or day 4 or day 5, you do get a little bit of renewed energy. Do not expend it all at once. Keep that really close. That's for you. That's for you. That's for this dream work, this visioning, this rejuvenation. You don't need to give that to anyone. All right, sweet ones. If you give it away too quickly and dive back into the realm of the living, you might find a more difficult cycle ahead. And it can be really challenging to keep that close. And avoid listening to that inner capitalist programming, which says, you're only worth what you produce. Yeah. That takes us into the second half of our follicular phase, approximately days 6 to 11, the inner spring. Or if you're working with the moon, it's the waxing moon, where we are now. The moon has been reborn as of Thursday. And, you know, she's waxing on up. It's a beautiful time. It's a time when our estrogen has really risen to a point where we are no longer flatlined. And we feel this maiden energy. Oh, I forgot to mention the winter is the crone energy, the wise woman. So wise. She's like underworld queen. She knows what's up. She's got all the good rituals and medicine. Then we are reborn as the maiden, a time to tend to your inner child, your inner maiden, you know, the one who is tender and vulnerable, the one who has her heart wide open, but maybe still needs a little bit of protecting. How can you cherish her in the inner spring? It's really a good time for putting new ideas into action, starting anything new, collaborating, reaching out to your community, being curious, being creative, being playful. These are all great ways to spend your inner spring. And it's best to avoid putting your ideas out there too soon before you're ready, which means really paying attention, like, I'm still feeling really vulnerable around this. Or maybe I don't want to put everything on the line just yet. Can I put little pieces, a breadcrumb trail? Claire says I don't have witch kit. We'll get you some, don't you worry. And you don't need it. You don't need things, right? It's whatever works for you, dear one. You can bring some rocks in from outside. But the inner spring, it's good to avoid putting ideas out there too soon and being taken advantage of. So you really have to learn to negotiate and pace yourself in your inner spring. And you're probably not going to be able to focus as much as you would in other seasons in your spring and summer. So I like to avoid anything too like menial or overly focused planning energy. That takes us into the second half of our cycle, the luteal phase. So triggered at ovulation, or maybe a few days before, again, you're hitting peak energy. You are at the summit of the cycle, the exact opposite from the bleed. This is around days 12 to 19. But again, if you track your basal body temperature, you can like pinpoint it. And yeah, it's the time where testosterone actually makes an appearance as our egg is released. And, you know, we can feel like really sexy, really loving, really giving. We can feel like Superwoman during this phase. Claire's looking forward to that peak. Yeah, it'll come back around. That's the beauty of it. It will always come back around. So we get at this time, like, you might want to just bake a cake for everyone you know. Sometimes I just feel that way. I'm like, can I just make you food and like watch you eat it? Like, not to be weird, but I just like in this phase, it's the mother archetype we're working with. Whether you are a mother or not, it's mothering the world. It's like open heart, big heart, so much energy. You've just got everything to give and you're just dazzling everyone, entertaining everyone. So joyful. Some people, though, might experience a little bit of overwhelm in this season. So whatever your relationship is to it, that is yours. That is your guide to work with. And it can be hard in a capitalist patriarchy to not get too identified with the summer woman within, to not hold on to the idea of an eternal summer, right? It is a yang phase, the masculine energy phase. We can be very rewarded as women for taking care of everyone, right? Not having as many needs maybe in this phase. So watch that identification. Remember, it's not forever, and that you still need to care for yourself in this season. It's a good time to plan to share your wisdom, teach, serve, anything that requires you to like show up in your power and put on a show. But avoid, again, throwing self-care out the window. You still need self-care in this season. You probably need to be extra mindful. So summer is when you publish. Yeah, Claire, summer would be a great time for publishing, or really for putting it out. Yeah, putting it out there. But then we'll talk about the autumn, which is a great time for editing. Yeah. So, and let's get there because it's time. So your inner autumn is going to be around days 20 to 26. It's the premenstrual phase. So after you ovulate, immediately progesterone begins to rise. This would nourish a pregnancy if there were one, but we always get the benefits of a little progesterone here. It's considered the adulting hormone. So you can really find yourself wanting to just cross everything off the list, plan everything, clean everything, tie up loose ends. This is the waning moon energy. So maybe just before the moon is reborn, you notice like, I really need to get those to-dos done that I set for this intentions of this cycle. Use that progesterone, use that waning moon energy to not be like anxious, but to really bring things to completion. It can feel so healing in this stage. And the challenging part is, though, estrogen is tanking and ultimately everything's flatlining, and it can feel really scary to have gone from this big-hearted server of the world, mother of the world, to like blending into this adulting phase of like being very responsible and getting things done, to all of the sudden like there's no more time, there's no more space, there's no more compassion, and that you're about to bleed. So the inner autumn also is a time for slowing down, for really, really paying extra close attention, slowing down and nourishing yourself, soothing yourself. Tons of self-care, tons of baths, of naps, of whatever you need before the bleed even. We're working our way so we can have a good bleed. We've prepped the cave, we've prepped the things we need, and then we're going to just give it to ourselves. Let yourself rest. You're starting to pump the brakes so that you can completely skid to a halt when that bleed arrives again. Yeah, and it's a great time. It's a great time to set boundaries, close the cycle, and plan. A lot of people find they do their best planning here, their best editing, any creative projects or anything in your life that needs throwing out. Do some Marie Kondoing. Like, that autumn energy is really good for it because you just can't even. Like, that's the beauty of the inner critic being at home in this phase, is we can have a conversation and glean the wisdom from her without believing everything she says, especially about our worthiness. She has a way of getting under our skin by telling us we're unworthy, but what she's really trying to do is protect us from missing out on our calling, our destiny, the best possible life we could have. So one thing you can do is keep an inner critic box. I'm going to start doing this in my next cycle. Again, from Wild Power, got this idea. You can start an inner critic box and write down throughout the cycle messages that your inner critic is really pounding you, hounding you about, and put it in the box and don't even think about it. And once you've entered that second half of the autumn, or maybe for you, you want to wait till the bleed, you open the box and you go through them one by one and you say, well, what is she trying to say? What is the editing magic here? And you make your list of like the good wisdom you can glean from her. And then you burn the pieces of paper. So it's a ritual, it's a releasing, it's a way of working with the inner critic in her home of the premenstrual phase. But I wouldn't do this until you've been working with your cycle for a few months and you've been, or even years, as I have, and even like you know where that boundary is with your inner critic. You know what language she uses when she's wrong. You can trust a higher self and not default to trusting her. So many more things I wanted to talk about tonight, dear ones. We'll have to have another sermon. I wanted to talk about boundaries. We'll have another sermon on this soon. Let me know if you liked this sermon. I was thinking about doing one on each inner phase. We could talk about as an artist, as a creator, as a business owner, like what about each phase would you like me to focus on in future sessions? We talk about self-care, rituals, how to relate to others, how to relate to the inner critic in each phase, how to relate to the different parts in each phase. I could get really weird with it. Let me know what you want. And yeah, if you liked this, sign up for Womanifest, which is my group coaching program where we go really deep into working with the menstrual cycle and all the cycles. I'll share the link here, and also you can go to my website and drop down events and sign up for the wait list. Womanifest, it's a 4-week long group program. Week 1, we dive into all of the good stuff that we talked about last week. The 7 practices of manifestation, law of attraction 101. Week 2, we dive into the cycles and seasons, all the stuff we're talking about tonight and so much more. We do this in community. So it's not just me talking at you, it's you getting coached with a group of wonderful people whom will quickly become your spiritual coven and lifelong friends. Week 3, we dive into all the divine feminine archetypes. We're talking about our muse. We're talking about Mama Earth. We're talking about goddess archetypes. We're talking about the inner crone, the maiden, the mother. Oh, and I forgot to mention the autumn season is connected to our wild woman, our inner wild woman. If you work with goddesses, it would be Kali, the destroyer. And so we talk about all that. We make goddess altars. We have so much fun. And in week 4, we integrate everything. We talk about radical self-love, embodiment, and fully detoxing from scarcity culture. It's an amazing journey, and it's going to be run multiple times this year, but go ahead and get on the wait list. You might get into the next iteration. And if you have questions, DM me. I'm here for it. You can also book a free clarity call if you haven't done so. Just head to luminousleanings.com and we can work together, dear ones. All right. I don't think I see any other questions, so we're going to close it here. Let's take a deep breath in, maybe bring the arms overhead. Hands together at heart center. Every part of your experience belongs. You can trust yourself. You can trust your body. You can trust the wisdom of nature, the wisdom of the cycle, and unleash and unlock this incredible power that you contain. Work with it, not against it. reach out to me with any questions, beautiful ones. I hope to see you next week. Sending so much love your way, and I'll talk to you soon. Blow out the candle. Yay!